Tushar, you wanted that big 7-seater SUV, no? What are you buying?
Fortuner.
Arey, but Ford just quit.
No, Ford Endeavour so much better than Fortuner. Why? It's so cool, so amazing.
Arey, you wanted that small SUV also, no?
Yeah.
So what are you buying?
Probably a Brezza.
But Ford just quit.
No, Ford EcoSport so much better than Brezza. So amazing. Where'd they go? No. It always seems like we remember these car brands fondly after they've left. It's happened with Mitsubishi, it's happened with Chevrolet, it's now happening with Ford. But now, Ford is finally coming back to India.
Are they?
I don't know. I think for that we need to go back and just look at their recently issued officially statements and the two important things we came to know from that.
So,
Nice cargoes.
yeah.
So the reason for that is because Ford India has said absolutely nothing officially, and even we've tried to speak with people we know within the organization, and they are only too happy to let this fire unfold, let the hype going, because it's essentially free marketing for them. But I think it's important for us to revisit what it is that Ford said back in September of 2021 when they exited the Indian car market.
Right. The one thing that we need to be absolutely clear about, and now these wordings kind of make sense. When they exited the country, they didn't really leave the country entirely. They restructured their operations. That is management speak to say we are not going to produce cars in the country as of now.
Or sell them.
But we will continue to service our existing cars and continue to fund our research and development division.
Correct.
Right? As and when the opportunity arises, right? At this point, they had two options. One, to either sell their factories and wind up operations in India altogether, or to hang on to it with the hope that something kind of reignites their innings in India. And it's funny how things have panned out for Ford India, because we know they had two plants.
Yeah.
They had one in Sanand, Gujarat, and one in Chennai, right? The Sanand factory was supposed to build the Figo, the Aspire, which it did for a few years. And the Chennai factory is the one that builds the Endeavour, the EcoSport, while they were on sale. The Sanand factory is not a Ford factory anymore.
Yep.
It's gone to Tata Motors, and in specific, their EV wing.
Yep.
Whereas the Chennai factory has remained unsold.
Correct. They had discussions with multiple players.
Yeah.
I think Tata was one of them who had shown interest. There was interest from JSW. There was interest from VinFast.
Yeah.
They were also planning to get that factory.
Mahindra was interested, oddly enough.
Exactly.
And there was also talks of Ola Electric trying to see if they could.
So basically, they had options in terms of people who were willing and organizations who were willing to come and buy the factory of them. But something stopped them from doing that. Something made them hesitate. Something made them realize that maybe there's some kind of gap for us to come back into the Indian market, not exactly in the same capacity that they were in before, but a slight, tangent from that, maybe a shift in their market placement. But I think there's two important things that need to be addressed from their initial release that when they had put out, right? The first was Ford was going to continue expanding Ford Business Solutions. Ford Business Solutions is their R&D wing, which means they had a workforce of about 11,000 people back then, and that team was supposed to get bigger. And in turn, this team is supporting the development in terms of tech, in terms of all kinds of solutions that they offer for Ford's global model range. So it's not just specific to India. And importantly, they did say that Ford would be giving Indian customers the benefit of their international model range, including hybrids, including electrics, and they had specifically mentioned the Ford Mustang Mach-E.
Right.
The catch being that at no point had they given any sort of timeline to this as to when any of this would be happening. And the rumors now have gotten ignited like never before for two very important reasons. First, there were lots of job listings that came up on different hiring portals, on different networking portals, so that obviously fueled the fire. And second was a very important report, reports carried out by very reputable publications citing known sources within Ford India that were confirming the return of the Ford Endeavour, known as the Ford Everest overseas.
And there was a third reason, that Ford patented the global design of the new Everest, which will be called the Endeavour in India, right? So that patent's in place, and like they say, there is no smoke without fire.
Exactly. And this was also followed by, obviously, most recently, the literal arrival of the Ford Everest and the Ford Ranger, which is the Everest or Endeavour's pickup version in India. So now, it's time for us to dissect and see how much of this hype is worthwhile,
Yeah.
what direction for Ford India and the online chatter actually makes sense. And this is going to specifically talk about the Endeavour because it does seem like if Ford India were to return to the Indian car market, well, if Ford India were to return and resume operations in the Indian car market, rather, the Endeavour would be their first pick. It is the nameplate. It does have a lot of recall as well. They have two options here. One, they can import the Ford Endeavour or they can make it locally. First, let's tackle the possibility of an imported Ford Endeavour, and that hits a very big wall at point zero.
It does, because you consider the markets that a product like the Endeavour can be imported from. Now, very logically, it makes sense for Ford APAC to say, hey, we're making the Ford Everest in Thailand.
Yeah.
We can bundle it up into shipping containers, send it to India and sell them as CBUs. The problem there is that the top spec versions of the Endeavour cost around 50 to 52 lakh rupees converted, right? I'm not getting the exact numbers here. It'll be on your screen.
But this is how much it costs in Thailand.
In Thailand, right? Now, when you ship it to India, in the scenario that it attracts the full 100% import duty,
Which it will.
and that no matter how much you love a Ford Endeavour, is not something that you'd be willing to justify, because let's face it, at the end of the day, it's still something that went up against a 45 lakh rupee Toyota Fortuner not more than 4 years ago.
Correct. And if you look at the parallels over there, the Ford Endeavour, the MG Gloucester, the Toyota Fortuner, all of these are 7-seater mass market brand
Yeah.
SUVs that you get for the same price as a Mercedes GLA, a BMW X1, that territory. Then this is with all of them being CKDs. They are largely assembled in India product. They're not 100% made in India. If they went the CBU route or direct import route with the Ford Endeavour, this would automatically move the Endeavour from a GLA alternative from a mass market to a GLC
Correct.
alternative.
And at that price point, you will begin to question whether brand Ford has as much weight, has as much snob value as a luxury German car. And the product that the Endeavour is, it is a utilitarian SUV that happens to know how to be luxurious. It is not the other way around. It is something you will go off-road with. It is something you wouldn't mind getting dirty with. And for that kind of a product, that kind of a price might not be the right pick.
Correct. And I think there's some bit of clarity that needs to be put in over here with regard to the whole import approach, because there is this term thrown around about the 2,500 unit exemption thing.
Oh, yeah.
Just to bear in mind, this is not an exemption from road taxes. It is still going to be a direct import. What Ford India would not have to do in that case, if they were limiting not just the Endeavour but overall their import unit number at 2,500, they wouldn't have to homologate or go through those processes, go through whatever red tape or bureaucracy is there with that, deal with those kind of costs. That would be one saving for them, but the car would still very much be treated as an import and taxed as such. The benefit is with an imported Endeavour is that, yes, they would have to keep their unit expectation in terms of how much they would sell very realistic. It wouldn't be much. And it would take less pressure in terms of setting up their retail network again. Because yes, Ford does have a dealer network sustaining their service support, but reviving a dealer network, getting those showrooms in place, training sales staff again, it's not a slow or, it is a rather slow process. It is a time-consuming, money-consuming process. So they would probably have to go in a route where they'd focus their presence in Mumbai, in Delhi, in Bangalore, in tier 1 cities in certain pockets to retail to a very small number of customers. Now the alternative comes in where we look at where the Endeavour was coming to India in the first place, as a CKD, as a completely knocked down, assembled in India product in Chennai. Now in that case, this is one place where Arun and I were having a lot of disagreement, because I was like, the headache of establishing an entire retail network would have to be taken to justify restarting an entire factory. That means getting factory workers, getting those licenses and safety norms in place, getting the tools up, the operational cost. There's a lot of money that goes in, even if you're not wholly manufacturing a car in India, you're just assembling it. And that didn't quite compute for me. But then I think we discussed what happened with Ford's Sanand plant and when Tata took it over. Now, just for giving you guys context, Ford's Sanand plant was built to international standards, to the extent that, if I'm not mistaken, they had built-in tornado proofing for a factory in Sanand, Gujarat. not in Texas.
Yeah.
But they basically went those same practices, which obviously gave them a lot of cost increment in assembling and manufacturing their plant in the first place. It didn't work out with their targets. The Indian market didn't go up to the volumes that they were expecting, nor did their market share. But Tata has taken their plant over. They had those tools, and because those tools are so advanced, it's essentially a question of upgrading or updating the software that they have for those same tools.
Right.
Getting obviously the staff around the manufacturing processes, the workers in the factory, they have to retrain them. But it gives them the luxury of getting the plant up and running in a span of maybe 5 to 6 months. It's practically no work for Tata.
Exactly. I think that number that you mentioned, 5 to 6 months, that is a critical number, right? If a manufacturing plant can go from manufacturing Fords to Tatas, from ICE to EVs in a matter of 6 months, this is Ford's own plant. And now let's not forget that the Endeavour in essence is quite a simple construction. It's a body on frame.
Correct.
And the previous Endeavour was also a body on frame, and that line would assemble the Endeavour. It isn't exactly going to be rocket science to try and restructure or retool wherever required to account for the new car that's coming in. It will also enable them to assemble the Ranger right here in India, because like Tushar said, it is effectively the pickup version of the Endeavour. From a cost standpoint, I still think going the CKD route is going to be a lot easier for Ford India, because hey, the plant can support it. There is no other logical reason that I see as to why Ford would veto purchases from other manufacturers, and why Ford would say, hey, this entire 40 to 60 lakh rupees space where the Toyota Fortuner is having basically a free run right now needs to be tapped into, right?
I guess essentially in that case, there's a domino effect that goes with that as well, right? Because you still have to have a certain volume throughput with that factory to make that cost work out. Then to sell those many cars, you would have to do one of two things or two of two things. One is you expand your retail network like it was before, make sure you get all the reach within India. Or if these cars are coming in to be assembled in India for exports afterwards.
Yeah.
That kind of dual personality that the factory could offer, or the dual value that the factory could offer, then yes, I can see it making sense where they wouldn't have so much of a burden on expanding their retail network. Still, they could get their products in at a relatively sensible price point. And of course, I think one thing is pretty clear here, that if Ford does come back to India, it's not going to be in that same capacity of a mass market manufacturer that we knew before. They're not looking at the 5 to 10 or 10 to 20 or 20 to 30 lakh price space. We're directly talking 45 plus.
Yeah.
45 to 50 plus.
I really hope that Ford's equivalent of the Mahindra XUV700, because that was a product that was co-developed, that in some capacity makes a comeback, because that is something I really want to see come to life with a Ford badge. I really want to see the Endeavour come back to life, right? And if they can bring us the Mustangs, the F-150s, there's no holding back, right? Because one thing that Ford India got really, really right was that it didn't let the love around the brand die down in the slightest.
Yeah.
There are people who own Fords despite them not having sales presence in the country. The service has not dwindled a bit. There are still reports of owners swearing by Ford, saying we've got absolutely no hiccups in terms of service.
Sorry to interrupt, but this is also very important as to why when Ford exited the Indian car market, we had made one video, and in that I said, do not be in a rush to sell your Ford product. It does not make any sense. A lot of people still did the panic by selling, distress selling, and that didn't work out to be a net benefit. But yeah, this was one of those reasons that if Ford has said that they're going to offer service support, there is a financial case for the dealers to offer that kind of service support. You can expect Ford customers to be serviced pretty well.
When you think about it, despite them not having sales operation, the service continues to be value. Even something as expensive as the Endeavour, right, does not cost an arm and a leg to service and to keep up. And even if you look at resale value, for something like the Endeavour, it's still where I can't afford it. So in general, there is a very strong case for Ford to come back to India. The rumors as it is are exactly that. They're rumors. Ford is very happy to let the rumor train roll. Any publicity is good publicity at this point. If they come back, all I know for sure is that the enthusiasts are A, waiting, and B, eager, and C, probably have deep pockets because of the kind of products that they're going to be offering.
Yeah, there are of course two challenges with this. Like you said, there are enthusiasts, but there's a difference between people saying it online and following it through with actual purchases. And as an addendum to that, there's a reason why you would hesitate a little bit, because Ford's restructuring, it's not like it didn't leave a bad taste in people's mouth, because it happens seemingly overnight both in India and Brazil. So there is a certain degree of trust that Ford will have to win over with customers in general, irrespective of if they had a Ford before or not. That will take some time. But yes, I do feel like this is a net positive. We do hope that Ford, if they come this time, their strategy is going to be more concrete. They have more than, becoming a one-trick pony like they have on different occasions. We saw it happen in the initial run with the Icon. They became one car dependent. With the EcoSport, they became one car dependent. Fiesta, again, one car dependent. You do not want to see that happening again. And if they go with this premium strategy, the sky's the limit. They can genuinely offer great value at that price point, and if they can get it local assembled for certain models like the Endeavour and Ranger, there's great potential there. And of course, the Ford Mustang Mach-E, the Mustang, the Ford Raptor, these are models that will sell. I know for a fact that it's not a Ford badge that's going to be a limitation factor over there, because they're completely distinct from the traditional luxury options that we have. So yeah, the Endeavour's got some great engine options, 3-liter diesel, 2-liter diesel.
Bi-turbo.
There's some great imported options that could potentially be coming in. But yeah, like we said, everything is a rumor at this stage. What you would like to see Ford do in India is something we're curious to know in the comments section. This was just our way of giving you some clarity as to what options they have, what paths they could potentially take. And yes, if you are going to generally want to see Ford coming back, give us comments based on, proper thought. Don't just give it like fanboy statements. Be better than that.
Let's play a little game. We'll start with you. Should Ford come back to India, and what are the 3 products that you want to see from them immediately?
I want to see the Ranger come back. Not come back. I want to see the Ranger arrive. I want to see the Ford Endeavour obviously arrive. But like we discussed, it makes more sense as the CKD. And the Mustang, yes. It's not even the question.
Funny enough, my list is the exact same. Maybe I'll swap the Ranger for an F-150 Raptor. I mean, if you're talking about cars I can't afford, might as well. So that was the long and short of what we think about whether or not Ford is coming back to India. Let us know what you think about this entire scenario in the comment section below. The usual, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, like, share, subscribe. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.
Bye-bye.
Bye.